it's not just PA, it's an everyday aspect of everyone's lives, and that's really what consciousness means, is to be constantly conscious. That's why I would promote things like conscious corners at all the different events to incorporate the political pillar into every different part of, studies and into the different activities. And so by conscious corner, I mean different food for thoughts before every GBMs, like problematic ads, problematic cartoons, problematic song lyrics that I could present to GBMers to say, take a look at this, what are your thoughts, and have people think about it on the side. And then before the Isang Bagsak, you would do a really quick debrief to keep the political pillar relevant in the everyday aspect of KP. Also, on a larger level, one of the workshops that I've been thinking of personally, or possibly GBMs, a possible GBM topic rather, would be talking about machismo and how that really affects males in the space, and talking about, I think one of the major misconceptions is that feminism is for women, when in fact patriarchy affects both males and females. And thus I think that by talking about that and making that more aware to people, and talking about why gender and sexuality is not just important for the Pinais, but also for both any which way that you identify as a gender or in your sexual identity, that how that affects you. So keeping that relevant in that space.
Tony?
So you said like creating brave and safe spaces. How will you help the community build these conceptions of brave and safe spaces, and be very critical about like language used about that?
I think that definitely goes back to, on the basic level, community guidelines, and making sure that those are upheld not just in our community forums and not just in our major dialogues, but also in our everyday talks, like during GBMs, and keeping each other accountable when we're talking just with other people, like friends during GBMs, during other GBMers, like in any different aspect of KP. I think it's really important that we take the phrase, what happens here stays here, but what is learned here leaves here. So making sure that we minimize the toxicity of the space by making sure that there's a certain amount of trust and understanding and accountability that we share with everybody else, all the other GBMers and all the board members included, so just to all the different aspects of KP.
Yeah.
Gender and sexuality and title name, those two things are typically under the branch of identity. So as a college student, we're working with a lot of people that may not really know who they are yet, and a lot of incoming high school students as well. As your GBMers, how do you plan on fostering this sense of identity throughout GBMers?
I think that, firstly, a lot of the GBMs and the workshops that I've been thinking about in planning, those are all targeted to helping people understand the different facets of what it means to find your identity and what it means to really take a look at who you are. And also I think that definitely I would continue the ethnic studies class that I took that was held by the KP board members this year, or facilitated by them. I think that really was something that helped me find my identity and has made me so passionate about this position. And I think that's something that we should really continue next year to help other GBMers continue finding their identity and exploring the different facets of what it means to be Filipino, what it means to be a Pinay, just the different facets of how our gender, our sex, our sexual identity, and our culture and our race, all the intersectionality of all of those different aspects. Also, I think that for that same reason, I would definitely take advantage of the resources that are available with the LGBT Resource Center and the Women's Center, which I think that often a lot of people don't think about, but as a SAC work, we're supposed to be representing the underrepresented minorities, one of which being lesbian Pinays. I think gay men in the space as well, just like Pinays in the space as a whole. So I would think that all of those things are things we could take resources from these amazing resource centers that we often forget about, and I would like to integrate those more into our space and really take advantage of what this university has to offer.
Jolena. All right. Get it. Pauline.
Hi. In an organization as large as pt, it may be difficult to educate the GBMers alone or with your fellow awareness codes learners. How do you plan to educate your fellow board members so that you are all on the same page and so that they can better support you?
That's actually a great question. I think that it definitely is important that the board members are like on board for maintaining the political pillar. Because I think that in past years, obviously this not this year because my successor was awesome. Not my predecessor was awesome. But in past years, I think that a lot of times the political pillar has been neglected, and I think that by making sure that my other board members understand what my goals are and what my co-host goals are, and by really keeping each other accountable again by talking about like what makes the space toxic, about how to encourage GBMers to be retained in this space in terms of like sexual identity, in terms of gender, and I think that would really help in making sure me and my co are not the only ones making sure that GBMers and other people are accountable. So. That's one of the main things I would do. Also, I think constant dialogue with board members inside like board meetings and outside of board meetings is critical. So those are all things that I would make sure to keep on.
Jason.
What does activism look like to you?
So activism, I think that a lot of people get turned off to activism because people think of tabling activism. People think of militancy and rage and things like that when you really get disillusioned with a space and want to take yourself out, or you just don't want to be in the system at all whatsoever. But activism means different things to everybody, and I think that it's really something that you have to want on your own and you have to pursue on your own, but it should be an everyday thing, and there are small things you can do to be aware and to be active and to be conscious in this space and outside of this space. And furthermore, I think that that's a major reason. I don't mean to be long-winded, but the way that I see next year with the 3 quarters, the first quarter I would want to do breaking down the different parts of society that we see that are really affecting us. The second quarter would be giving GBMers, board members, anybody in the space, solutions and ways to navigate the system, which I think is a component that's often missing when we talk about activism. Because you can't just take yourself out of the space, you can't just take yourself out of the system or out of like the institution necessarily. We have to work within the institution, within the system to change it. And that's really something, that's really a responsibility I take upon myself and a reason that I'm really passionate about this position specifically.
So that was your 5th question?
There's 5 questions.
So 4 questions. Alright, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Tony.
So identity can be a very like triggering topic for people, especially when the space becomes unsafe. How do you deal with triggers, and how do you help others handle their triggers?
Well, I think that how I deal with my triggers is like really owning my triggers, making sure people know what my triggers are, being really open about what, like it starts with obviously preferred gender pronouns, and it goes on to just the different things that really trigger me, like making sure my co's, my board members, like my fellow board members and other like GBMers like know what triggers me. I think that if you make it a secret, if you hide something like that, that's one of the things, when you feel like you have to hide something like that, that's when you start to feel unsafe. So I think creating a sense of openness, that starts with me and being open about what I believe in and what I've gone through. I think that anybody who knows me knows that I'm really open. If you ever ask me a question about my past, about like anything that I've gone through, I'm very open. So I think that's all a part of what makes me me and how I own my identity and continue to look as to the different facets of my identity. So.
I don't think anyone else. Oh, sorry.
Some of the things that you may talk about, these decisions may make people feel very uncomfortable and not wanting to share with your events. How do you plan to make people feel more comfortable to speak for them?
So that, I think that goes back to making sure that the political pillar is really integrated into more than just very specific events, and talking about like conscious corners and talking about making sure everyone is accountable. So making sure basically that the political pillar is present in all of the pillars, just as all of the other pillars should be present in all of them. They're all integrated and important to one another, and neither can stand alone. So I think that's really important to making sure people understand that to be part of KP is to be not just a part of the social pillar or the cultural pillar, but to be part of all of them. And I think also that has to do with programming too. If there are other events that are at the same time as your event because of lack of communication with other board members, that would obviously decrease like GBMers' attendance. And also I think that being realistic about topics and how to talk about topics with people who are not necessarily as conscious or aware about these topics. And I think it starts with language, really I statements, things like that. All things that, you know, talk about our shared struggle rather than just saying you, me, I, you, and really separating people, but making sure people understand this is a community where we can all talk and we can all share our struggles.